Why do you think it is important to focus on student strengths?
I think it's important to focus on student strengths because as an instructor, it's how I can build the lesson. So I teach 5 different classes and all the students are very different. So finding out how they act as a class, how individuals act, helps me to be able to explain the material. So if I know a student really needs to analyze why we're doing what we're doing, it takes it so the question isn't, but why do we have to? And you feel like, oh, they just don't want to do it. It's because they have to see that connection in order for them to grasp it. And I think that's really helpful. Other students, you have them in classes and they're really quiet and they don't like group work or they don't like to talk out loud. Well, that helps me to know that the activities should be more structured to be in smaller groups to get them to feel more comfortable and come out of their shell. Otherwise, you could just wind up standing there and staring at yourself. So I think from the instructor point of view, knowing what students are good at, where their talents lie, helps you to build a better community in the classroom.
How does this approach help you to build relationships with your students?
I think they see that I care. When we actually do the assessment strengths quest in the classroom, one of the first activities we do is having them separate into groups based on questions, moving back and forth, and I can see as a group where they lie. Like one of the questions is, do you like a competition? Yes, or do I have to, or somewhere in the middle. And that's actually really cool because then I can do structured activities later on that have them compete against each other if they're really high competitive, or make sure it's not a competition because they want to include everybody and they don't want winners. Or if there's half and half, that's actually really cool because you get to do different things. But it helps them see, because I even tell them, like, oh, okay, so guess we're going to be doing some competitions in here. Or helps me see if they're all analytical. I have a class this semester that with their Strengths Quest themes, they have analytical, deliberative, and responsibility, and only like one person is interested in creating ideas. And it made me feel better to see that because they weren't always like jumping up and like thinking of new things, and I thought for a while they just weren't getting me, and I see now that, oh no, they're processing and they're trying to figure out the details, and we're going more into that. And so and them seeing that, I just really think helps them, I don't want to say like me better as a person, but like me as an instructor better, because it's not just this rigid, oh, this is how we're going to do it, this is what we're doing.
So what was the purpose of your overall lesson?
The purpose of what I did was to really focus in on getting them to know each other and to help me get to know them and to see how they work in groups. Because the class's learning outcomes include critical thinking and then interpersonal communication, I thought that the activities having them speak in class and even in the activity with the squares, they have to work in the groups, but also they have to think about it. And it helps them get to know each other and try challenges together. And the whole point was to have them do different challenges individually and together and have them come together.
Briefly describe your lesson, including the learning outcomes that you wanted to see.
So the first activity was a name game. And the idea is that you are going on a trip, and in my example, we were going on a boat, and they have to tell me their name and what they're bringing on the boat with them. And so I tell them that my name is Jenny and I'm bringing juice. Sometimes people pick up right away or they've played the game, but the whole class, it usually takes a while. And the idea from my perspective is it helps me start to relate their names because it's connected. So Jenny, juice, Claudia, chips. And it doesn't always have to be food or whatever, but it's starting that recognition. It also helps them build that community. One of the outcomes for NSC, one of our P's, is personal connection. So it's building that connection with me, so I feel like I should have their names memorized, and also with them, especially because they are going to be doing other group work and activities, so that way they get to know each other's names. It also it helps me see where they are when they're paying attention, and kind of a critical thinking aspect with that, because are you picking up that we're all saying the first letter of our name and the first letter of the item. I purposely have the students who already have their items not say it slowly at first, because I'm not trying to give it to them simply, but it's funny because it's also cool to see the students trying to help the others, and that's sort of fun. But the idea is really that personal connection, critical thinking, and then as the instructor, getting to know them. Yes.
My name is Pam. Bring more Jello.
No. No Jello. No more Jello for now. Yeah. Antonio, bring a jacket. Nope, I'm sorry. Oh, Julio. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. This is why we're learning names. Julio's bringing a jacket. In case it gets cold.
My name is Katusha. I'm bringing Konobo.
Nope.
Not Konobo.
Nope.
Oh, well, he was before me.
No, she.
My name is Hannah. I'm bringing a jumpsuit.
No, Hannah. No jumpsuit.
I feel bad for him.
I'm Gio and I'm bringing a jumpsuit.
Yes. We want Gio. Yeah. He, you know, I feel like he's probably got some good jumpsuits.
Is Daniel bringing a Danish?
Daniel's bringing a Danish. Absolutely.
Oh
Hold on, never mind.
Steven, I'm gonna bring strawberries.
Steven, you can bring strawberries. Why not?
Get it.
The squares activity is really the first small group activity they do in the class. So they have to actually work as a team to get through the different squares. So I actually gave them, the cards so that way they could easily find each other because they still don't have each other's names memorized even though we played the game. And then trying to figure out how to get through, and they think it's mean at first, but what's cool is that there's not a specific pattern. It's not like, here's my name and here's the first letter. It's just random that somebody made up. So they have to work through a challenge that it's not easy to figure out, and how do we come up with it? And then at the end, they all have to go through as a team. And so that's where I connect back that it is a team challenge, and the whole class can't get out of it until we all go. So you're building from that small group, we want one person, to an actual small group, to the entire class getting through. And that's what's cool, is at the end, they're actually not just trying to beat each other, they're actually trying to help each other. And that to me goes back into that personal connection, learning outcome.
So how were your activities helpful in identifying student strengths?
I think both activities are actually really helpful doing that, especially since I do both of those activities in the second week. First, with the names, I'm able to see that the information processing. Are they picking up on what is being said? Are they seeing, hey, the first letters? They're hearing it. They're thinking about it. Are they connecting it back? And you're able to see who gets it quickly and who doesn't. I'm also able to see who's willing to keep trying. And that's a cool thing that I'm just going to keep shouting out, and I'm going to do it the right way, which means they're listening to the instructions. And I'm going to keep trying, and I don't want to give up. And I'm also able to see who is more silent. And I think that is still a strength of theirs. They're processing, they're trying to learn. So they're not necessarily engaging and throwing out wrong answers. Maybe they are somebody who likes to have things right, so they have to take it all in. That's helpful to know. There's somebody who probably, with even Strengths Quest, is going to have that analytical, deliberative, or responsibility theme. It also then helps me see that they have to process things. And so there's somebody who's going to be really good at paying attention to details. So I'm going to go back through and give all of the information again, like with our names and what we're bringing. The other activity, it helps me see who steps up to be the leader, who's willing to help other people. Also, who's willing just to go out and try and see if they get it or if they fail, and who's not afraid to fail. And both of those are our strengths, along with listening. Because it's not just about listening to me as your instructor. Are you listening to your classmates as they help you? Because that's what working in a group is, and being a team. So seeing who is the natural leader, who steps up, who is willing to follow, because you don't need 12 people in charge, and to structure. Because if the whole class is trying to be a leader, I'm probably going to need to make some adjustments to the activities.
How can faculty apply your second activity to their lessons?
All gen ed faculty have that critical thinking learning outcome, so I think that if you do it early enough, you can start to see how their brains work. You can also, since the maze is something that you build on your own, you can make the pattern however you want. So if you're, a science faculty, maybe certain squares represent certain things, and there's a pattern that you want them to recognize. And maybe they don't know what it is at first, but that's how you're going to introduce it. Maybe you have math equations in there, and there's a particular number sequence that they have to remember. and maybe it's not a sequence that they even know about or makes sense, but you can use it. So you have the formulas in there, and then that way they can do it. So while I did it as just a random maze, you can have different things in the squares that they actually have to figure out and get as a team in order to get through it. And I think with any like real subject disciplines, it could work really well that way. You also don't have to have it as a particular pattern. Maybe each square has a question that you ask. And yes, the first group that goes, the other teams will hear that question, but they're still going to have to remember it if it gets asked again, if they don't get everything right. So I think there's a lot of different ways it can be brought into the classroom that helps build team, it helps build community, helps get that critical thinking, and kind of even assesses their study skills and what they're able to remember and how they're able to remember.
What excited you about your lesson or activity?
I like the second part, gets them out of the classroom. Valencia is a place for learning. It's part of NSE that we want students to recognize that. It's not just learning is in the classroom, and we focus so much on, our goal is student learning, and it's about the student, and we know that students don't just learn in the classroom. We know that they learn by going to events with student development. We know that they learn by going into the library and having study groups and making friends and connections. I like that my curriculum took them outside of my classroom. It showed them, one, the building where my office is. It showed them the atrium. They could see other students in there studying. One of my old students was in there, and they could see that you have that connection. I really like that the learning happened outside of the classroom. Even our follow-up questions are outside of there, and I think that's important for any subject, but also when we're talking about students who are in their first year at Valencia, to see that learning isn't confined into four walls. There were no walls around us, and how great is that?
What were your next steps?
So since that is the name game and actually the group activity, it's the first time that they are in those small groups. After the activity, I actually talk about the importance of knowing people's names, because I tell them that I'm going to learn their names, and yes, they have, other classmates, but they should know their classmates' names when they get into student groups. So now students are trying to work to remember what students said and by what they were bringing, which is kind of cool. Because that helps build that community. But also, as we get into talking about Strengths Quest and the class in NSE, they're going to be able to eventually pick their own groups. And we talk about, even from the first day, hey, you don't want to be with all people who are like you. If everybody is able to create ideas and think of different things, who's looking at the details? You need somebody else who's detail-oriented. If you have people who are only ever detail-oriented, who's out there looking at the big picture? So being able to put them in groups by my game, and them not having a choice, then when we get into Strengths Quest, we're able to actually bring that back. Like, could your group have been better if somebody else had this particular theme or ability? How should you be structuring your groups? And we talk about it more than from the classroom. We talk about it even in the workplace. Because companies use these to try to form teams that are well-rounded. Everybody who has the same talents, you're not going to be able to get everything done. So when we get into Strengths Quest, I'm able to have them concentrate on how they performed in the group, to how they can do if they are able to pick their own group, and have everything else in their head thinking about what other people bring to the table.
What did you learn about your students through both activities? Mm-hmm.
I learned their names, but one of the really cool things is I learned that one of my students in the class, I actually have many students who are either international and English wasn't their first language, and we have really great communication, but I learned that one of them just has no desire to stop trying, and he was doing it the right way. And so often people who just want to try will just shout out what to bring, but he would do it the exact right way every time, and it hurt my heart to tell him no. But I learned so much about him through that, in his determination and dedication, and I can probably guess his Strengths Quest themes, because he wants to be involved in his learning process, and that was a really cool thing to see. Even another student, how she thought she was getting it, but she did it.
The board.
Gotta say your name and no.
My name is Andrew, and I'm bringing a dress.
No, I'm sorry, Andrew. No dress.
I'm Derek, I'm bringing another board.
No board.
I'm Derek, I'm bringing another pen. I'm
Derek,
bringing another book.
I really love your dedication. I really do. No, I mean, this is I love that you're trying. It warms my heart, and I feel so bad for saying no.
My name is Andrew, and I'm bringing a cake.
Andrea, no cake.
I'm very confident in apple.
George, no apple.
I'm very confident in light.
No.
I'm very
Andrew, I'm bringing
confident.
more juice.
No.
I'm very confident in a cup.
No.
I'm very confident in a shoe.
No.
I'm very confident in pants.
My name
Feeling
is
really
Andrea,
good
and I'm
now.
bringing a plate.
No. And then she was kind of upset, but then wanted to keep trying. You're able to see how their brain works, and that's fun. And then with the second activity, how they work in groups, and I was able to see even with this activity when there's not a leader in a group, what happens. I was able to see who people were counting on and how they behaved and how they wanted to perform and act, and then how they wanted to help each other at the end. And that was also pretty cool to see.
How will you use this knowledge to shape your future lessons or interactions with your students? What was the takeaway?
It's funny because I have a different takeaway even with each class on how they behaved and how they did the group work. I know that the one class needs more instruction when it comes to group work and how to work together, and maybe even assigning roles if people don't seem to be taking on roles by themselves, because even practicing different roles could make them more comfortable. I had other classes where I had one class that they wanted to help each other out, but they literally wanted to help each other out. Like, they weren't trying to screw each other up. They were literally trying to help each other, each team get into the same thing. So that was cool, and I know that they're going to do great at big class activities. They don't need to necessarily be separated into smaller groups. They're actually there to listen to each other and try to help each other. Other classes, I'm able to see who is really good in small groups, who's the leader. Can I flip people to make them see if they can be the leader? So I actually learned how to structure different activities in each one of my classes instead of keeping it all the same. Because I think that makes learning more fun. One, it makes it more fun for me because I like seeing them learn, and I think they learn better because they're doing something that goes along with their personal abilities and their strengths, and students learn better when they're able to connect the material that way.